why the metaverse failed and what comes next.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm here to try to explain why the metaverse failed and probably what can actually work. So for those of you that missed it, in 2021, there was a metaverse hype. It was right around the time that Facebook started rebranding themselves as Meta. We were all stuck at home mid-COVID and wanted a virtual world to experience like the world we experience now. The main ones are up here, Decentraland, they had a casino, really the others didn't. And then there was Sandbox, and other side there were a few others. Most of them really did not work. Some are still trying to work, but they didn't. So I want to back up though and kind of just define like what is a metaverse. Like any normal person, I ChatGPT'd, or we used to call that Googling. A metaverse, by a Oxford Dictionary definition, is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. I recently went to an exhibit in Tokyo about AI and computing, and they define the metaverse as a virtual space where people can interact with others, enjoy various services. In the metaverse, you can chat with others, play games, and participate in events. It's a place where you can enjoy experiences similar to the real world in a digital world. So right off the bat, I can give you the short answer as to why this didn't work. This already exists, and we use it every day. It's called the internet. That's where we are interacting with others online. I will say the one caveat here, though, to go back to the original definition, is a virtual reality space. So that being said, we're talking about having a 3D world that replicates our reality like this, having an avatar that can move around this 3D world. Point being is that the metaverse is a fancy word, a fancy, very overused buzzword for a 3D world. And a 3D world is not a new technology, a 3D world is a new interface. So just like how Google Chrome is a new interface from Internet Explorer, many people believe that a 3D world is a better interface than a 2D interface. And I'm all for it. I mean, in certain ways, I think we'll look back and think, we looked at 5 static images of a t-shirt rather than a 3D model of that t-shirt on our avatar, or we looked at 5 static images of a hotel room rather than being in a hotel room, looking around, changing the time of day, looking at different perspectives. 3D worlds definitely have their place. But one of the key things about 3D worlds is, I'm sure a lot of people have seen these, you kind of need good hardware for it. And the hardware, it's working, it's not there yet. AR and VR are in progress. They're probably the best way to experience 3D, but they're not there, and it's actually less of just a technological thing, it's also a generational thing. So for us to actually adopt being in a 3D world, whether it's through AR and VR or whether it's in one screen, is gonna take time, right? Video gamers understand it, but the normal person doesn't always know how to interact in a world like this. So generationally, I think just like how it took a while for us to adopt smartphones and computers, it's gonna take a while for us to adopt the actual hardware that facilitates 3D worlds. I'll take a step back from 3D worlds for a minute and actually just talk about another thing that's often associated with metaverse, and that's Web3. So Web3 is a very interesting term because it's kind of confusing. A lot of people think crypto, blockchain, future of the internet, metaverse. And I like to refer to this guy named Chris Dixon, who is an internet entrepreneur. He works for our partner at Andreessen Horowitz. And he laid it out in more of like a stage definition. So there's Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, right? Web 1 is effectively the start of the internet. It's when we would go to the library and there would be a computer, and you really only read. It's the read era, right? You would see images, you would see articles, but most people didn't really know how to upload. You would just kind of read the internet, or you'd look at images and stuff like that. Fast forward to what we're used to today, which is the write era. And write is when, we start posting on Facebook or MySpace, or the social media era, and we start arguing in blogs, and we start posting videos of ourselves and things like that. That's when we start creating content. So that's the write era, read and write. Most of us are used to that. The new era is the Web3 era, and it's all about ownership. So in his words, it's empowering users to create a more decentralized and equitable online experience. What does that mean is basically owning your own content, right? And owning your own digital assets. So right now you have these big conglomerates that basically own all our content and sell it back to us. The Web3 era, which is highly influenced by the technological innovation of blockchain, which allows peer-to-peer transactions without a middleman, is about taking back ownership of your content. So Metaverse is lumped into that, but that's really what Web3 is about. And I want to now move to an industry that's been doing Web3 for ages very well, and that's the video game industry. So the video game industry has been doing in-game currencies, maybe not on blockchain, but in-game currencies, in-game marketplaces. They've been doing customization, wearables, tradables, and they've been perfecting it. Modding, for anyone that doesn't know, is basically adjusting like the actual in-game experience, functionality, or looks, and that's been going on forever. And the video game industry is quite successful at this. They're larger than the movie industry. They're actually 2024 revenue in video games were larger than movies, music, and streaming revenue all combined, pretty much. So they've really figured this out, right? How are they the example of a 3D world that really works? And I'll give you the answer. It's a single word called immersion. And immersion is also called stickiness. When I think about immersion, I like to think about a physical casino, which we all, I'm sure, are familiar with. When you're in a physical casino, at least a well-run physical casino, everything's perfect, right? The light, the air, my drink is filled, there's pretty girls everywhere. Like, everything sensorially makes sense for me to sit and play this game. In a physical world, there's a lot of things and factors that can impact that. In a digital world, you really only have your screen, right? So the video game industry has actually spent the past decades perfecting immersion in the digital world. And that is through three main things, actually: proper gamification, network effects, and ownership. So proper gamification, there could literally be an entire, there is an entire book written on this, but there could be entire courses written on this, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But the idea is that, we spoke about this earlier actually, gamification is not leaderboards and points and ranking system. Gamification is very much understanding your core game mechanics and building the incentives and the attachments through users to keep you there. So again, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but you have positive, negative, white hat, black hat. This book actually by Ho Kjaer is called Actionable Gamification, and if you want to learn about it, fantastic read. But that's what I mean by proper gamification. Then we have the network effects. So broadly defined, network effect is just the value of a service or product increasing as more people use it, right? So this is what we talk about when we talk about social. This was a video, but I can just describe the video instead. Basically, this was one of the only Metaverse projects that actually kind of worked. It was by Yuga Labs, the Monkeys, I don't know if you know them, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They did like an event-based Metaverse experience where they had 7,200 concurrent users that were basically just like running around. They weren't doing anything. There was no gamification to it. But the reason that they were able to get so many concurrent users in one place at one time is because of their ability for the network effect. They basically utilized their NFT network with all the celebrities and influencers and whatnot, and were able to actually draw people in, right? So that's what I mean when it's like people got to be there. You don't want to go to an empty casino or an empty area. And that's an art in and of itself. And then the final one I want to talk about is ownership. This is what I mean when I say bringing back in like Web3, blockchain. How do you get users to feel like they're attached and they have an ownership over, what they're playing in? And right now, the only real kind of ownership mechanism we have, at least in the crypto casino world, is buyback and burn. So for those of you that don't know, whether it's a shuffle or a rollbit, when they issue a token, they are revenue sharing by buying back part of that token, destroying it effectively, and then that would allow the price of, obviously, like the token to become more scarce and the price of the token to increase. Theoretically, giving people that understand how to trade tokens a revenue share. And I think this is one step towards ownership and utilizing blockchain, but I think you can go much further with this and even look at the video game industry and think about how can we be on chain with in-game assets and actually share revenue within the game or from the game rather than an external token. But again, this is kind of in the ethos of Web3. And I know I'm running out of time here, so I'll just end it with Ho Kjaer's quote. And this is basically I'll overcomplicate this. It's effective gamification, or creating what we want to call a metaverse, is basically a combination of game design, game dynamics, behavioral economics, psychology, neurobiology, implementing the proper technological platforms, and just proper business decisions, right? So said more simply than that, the truth is it's simply not incorporating just game mechanics and game elements doesn't make the game fun, in the same way just slapping on a 3D world doesn't make the metaverse. Thank you.